These are my least favorite type of videos to make, but they're also some of the most important because it's again time to remember a legend of the music industry. Somebody that wasn't necessarily embraced by the mainstream and went against the grain when it came to his production techniques, his innovation, and his not taking royalties from the artists that he went with, instead taking only a one-time fee. I'm of course talking about legendary engineer, frontman, musician, producer, jack of all trades, master of all, Steve Albini. Steve was born July 22nd, 1962, and passed away at the tragically young age of 61 on May 7th, 2024. I am in no way unique in saying this, but not only was Steve a forward thinker, a pioneer, somebody who was so important for alternative rock, indie rock, grunge, shoegaze, you name it, the list of bands that he's worked with is absolutely insane. And if you just take a flick over to his Wikipedia production discography, you'll see everybody from Manic Street Preachers to Hum to Nirvana, In Utero, Veruca Salt, Chevelle's first album. There's so many different people, probably ones that you and I haven't even listened to before. I know that for a fact. And there's a whole gem of a discography that he's worked on either as a producer, as an engineer, and this is one of the hardest, toughest, biggest losses that I and everyone else is going to experience in the world of rock music for a long time. The person, the team, the people behind the production board do not always get the love that they deserve. But Steve is fortunately one of those names that I think a lot of you will recognize. There's a reason why I've left this particular album sitting behind me, because this, as far as I know, was the final album that Steve engineered or had a hand in completely finishing. It was Code Orange with The Above, came out last year, one of my favorite records of last year. Unbelievably, Steve Albini passed away in his own music recording studio, as his staff confirmed. And this is oddly fitting for a man that probably spent more of his life in those walls, or else in some studios' walls, than anywhere else.
Oh, who's that? Where is he?
Albini and his flaming feet. Don't do this at home, folks.
Any documentaries that you watch where you're able to see Steve doing his thing, working with bands, like of course Nirvana's In Utero is definitely a huge one that people are going to gravitate towards when shouting out Steve and his legacy, and rightfully so. It's one of the best albums of all time.
They're calling me. I have to work now.
The lengths that he would go to get the right drum sound, to be able to mic up a different area or have a different technique for getting around to recording the guitars or layering them or whatever. There was just such a raw dynamic to the way that he got dialed in, and so many bands were elevated to that next level because of him. I think of the Pixies immediately because of Surfer Rosa in 1987. The man never really took time off. Every single year, there's multiple, if not dozens, of records that he's a part of, and more recent acts like one that I've just gotten into, Ty Segall and The Breeders, even looking back to their iconic 90s material that he was a part of. Mogwai, Jawbreaker, Murder Incorporated, Nirvana, Pixies, Flogging Molly, Manic Street Preachers. The list goes on and on and on. And these are some of my personal favorites, and if you're not familiar with Steve, then I highly recommend giving his discography a look over, just to appreciate the work that maybe you didn't even recognize that he was a part of, whether that be as an engineer, a mixer, producer. His role was always fluctuating, but he brought out the best in the artists that he worked with. He was never greedy. He was definitely critical of the industry and the practices, the predatory ones that go on. I feel like he was definitely on the right side of a lot of different things. And I just have to say, Rest in peace, Steve Albini, and we will never forget you because the sound will never end. I also can't overlook the fact that Steve was the frontman for a couple of his own bands in the 80s, into the 90s, and a band active still to this day, Shellac, no longer active, I assume, at this point, back from 92 all the way to 2024. Big Black in the 80s as well. Some incredible runs. Leave your memories of Steve Albini in the comments down below, and let me know what was your favorite record that he was a part of in some way. Other than that, you can check out a couple of videos on screen for albums that I've reviewed that he was either the producer or engineer on. Hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.